And we're back.
And we're back.
Welcome back to another episode of With the Chiefs. This one's a little bit different.
Episode 15.
Episode...
Holy dooly.
16.
No, 16. Oh my God.
Wow.
Incredible.
I didn't think we would, I didn't think it would pan out like this, that's for sure.
That's 16 weeks we've been doing this for.
Yeah.
That's pretty crazy.
It is. We've learnt so much in such a short period of time as well. Anyway, enough rambling. This one's going to be... this one's going to be a bit different. We're doing like a second version of Jack Daniel's, I guess, the concepts around running. I think last time we delved into specifics in training, and this week we're going to touch on one of the earlier chapters in his book, which goes into, I guess, his basic laws of running, which are just some principles that he's noted down. There's 12 of them in total, but I guess first we'll just keep the existing structure and go through our training week. So, Dom, how'd you go at Canberra and for the rest of the week?
Yeah, it was an interesting week coming off of Buffalo. I think, I already talked about this with Sam Shield. My legs were really sore, and then I was hoping to recover enough for the marathon, and I was lucky that I did. And the pacing job was interesting. Had a bit of a night out the night before.
Whoa! You didn't tell me about that.
Yeah, I don't know. Got home at about 2 a.m. and rocked up to the start line, probably still, a little bit drunk or hungover.
Wait. You had a night out before the marathon.
Yeah.
How did that happen?
Oh, because one of my friends is going to America.
So
it was a bit of a farewell for Sean. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And everyone, they were all pretty keen to go out, and it was good fun. It's so fun watching Chris dance. Like, it's no one can do it like he does it.
Who bestie?
Yeah. So that was good fun. And then so got to the start line in one piece, fortunately. And it's funny, when you got a little pacer flag on, everyone thinks you're like, I don't know, famous or something. So many people were like, there was this little bunch of a couple of Asian people, and they were really keen to like take photos and, I don't know, do all that.
Because you had a flag on you.
Because I had a flag on me, and I was just not in the mood. But yeah, that was funny. After the marathon, the guys were all giving me a little bit of shit about that, which is funny. But it's pretty cool to watch all the other guys run, though. A few of the turbo runners, Brad and Adam, they had some really good runs. Brad had only done like 2 weeks of jogging around. He did a couple of 5K runs, and then he smashed out like a time that no one thought he'd be able to run. He held like 5-minute Ks for the marathon.
Wow.
Off of like 2 weeks training.
What? Does he have much of a athletics background?
He's done some big runs before. Like he did a 24-hour run, and he's done a few big runs around like Turbo's house and stuff like that.
So he's got a bit of a base.
Yeah, I think you never lose that background. But people forget that when you're not training, I guess.
Yeah.
His mate Adam, he ran really well as well, or my mate Adam. So that was really cool to see them run the marathon. The marathon's so special when people can get through it, and I think it's just such a brutal, challenging event. You experience so many emotions along the way, so it's pretty cool to see them get that done.
Dom, what about remember when we went to the Bay? You were running with 2 guys. I think it was Arthur and and Brett, was it?
Yeah, so Brett ran. He travelled around to every state and ran a 50K for 8 days in a row. Him and another guy, and then Canberra was like their last day. So
wow,
that was pretty cool. pretty challenging thing to do.
What did he run in
And
Canberra?
I don't know. I think like 3:30 something, 3:45, 3:30, 3:40. I don't know. Um, but yeah, pretty impressive.
That's wild.
Like I think all just the logistics of it, trying to get on a plane and get to the next destination and
Yeah,
recover,
yeah.
and then check in and all that would just be. I don't know. It doesn't sound like that much fun to be honest.
It
but
sounds like a nightmare. It's just,
yeah, I don't know. It's pretty
but it'd be
cool that they
pretty.
could do it. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. By the end of it, you'd be thrilled. Be
yeah, definitely. And then Arthur, he was just wanting to go sub 3, but I think he was a bit more capable. But he ran 2:57,
wow, very
which is
nice.
pretty solid, and I think that it meant a lot to him. Like his family came out and watched him run, and
Mm,
yeah, it's been really cool to see him tick off the training and see it all come together. So yeah, well done to
fantastic.
Arthur as well. Yeah, what about you, Smitty? How'd the week and the race go?
Yeah, the race went well. I was very happy with the result. Just scraped under 75 minutes. So yeah, I think it was 74:57.
Oh
Um,
wow,
it was interesting because the GPS was like completely off,
yeah,
and like I was charging. I don't know. Sometimes it was saying 320s or something, but you knew it
mm,
was off. So I actually didn't really pay much attention in the end. I was lucky to have the power reading that I was meant to stick to, so I wasn't going to blow up. I think it was about 300 watts. So I was paying
mm,
attention to that, just making sure I was on that as best I can.
yeah,
Felt pretty good for, you know, 13, 14 Ks, and then it just got very, um, it got pretty rough. But that's just like any sort of half marathon would in the pointing end of it.
mm,
Um, but yeah, it was definitely nice to be out there running with Otto and Tobias and just sort of that pack.
yeah.
It
And I
helped.
think what you ended up winning the pack.
Yeah, I don't know. I just as I was paying attention to power, I kind
Yeah,
of just ran in the pack, but as soon as I could sort of hold a little bit more power, I just kept going, and I think I pulled away a little bit. But to be fair, Otto on a good day, he was actually quite sick.
yeah,
So and he still managed to run. I think it was 76, um, around 76. So when he's
mm.
not sick, he would have absolutely blitzed me. But
Oh well, you've got one up on him now.
yeah,
So
I'll take it, but it doesn't really count as a bit of cheating. Um, but yeah, also just being out there running with so many people. The weather was perfect. It's just like even though I was hurting towards the end, it was just incredible being around people. You sort of get that lift that
definitely.
I'm yeah doing my last half marathon. It was around Penrith Lakes. Um, it's certainly not the same. It's like, but that was when people were trying to go sub 230. So that was
Mm,
still fun going around Penrith Lakes. But there is a massive difference having sort of people running in the race and you're sort of getting inspiration from other people in the event and also having the crowd, people cheering you on and stuff like that helps immensely. So yeah. Um, Yeah, I'm stoked with that. I was being a bit cheeky, being like, I'll try and go out and try and run sub 74. I think I knew in my heart that was not going to happen.
yeah, you're talking a big
Talking a big
game
game for the
in that
pot.
interview.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it didn't quite pan out, but but yeah, it's good. Good to know that I'm back in sort of the best shape I've been in.
Mm,
Um, looking forward to training and continuing moving forward to what's it called Gold Coast.
mm,
That's still going to be the focus. So yeah, I'm happy. I'm really happy.
mm.
Um, Yeah. Anything else to mention on that? Probably not.
Um, no, not really. Yeah, Beck had a run as well, and
Oh
she was
yeah.
just out there enjoying it. She said it's like, yeah, one of the most enjoyable runs
Hmm.
she's done, which was pretty good. She didn't run a PB or anything, but I think she was just in the right mindset, and
Hmm.
that's one of the Jack Daniels principles. So,
Yeah, which we're gonna get into.
yep,
Stay
I reckon
tuned.
that's a
You got
that's
to
a
get
pretty
through
good
the
segue.
waffling. um, good segue. All right, Daniel's basic laws of running. As I said earlier, this is in the early stage of the book. I guess it's getting the runner mentally ready for training. So, sort of having a good mental approach before you start digging into the different types of training, which we talked about, like your easy running, all that sort of stuff. So, Dom, number one, every runner has specific individual abilities. Um, each runner has unique strengths and weaknesses. What do you think about that one?
Yeah, I think even just like recently, I found like that to be really true on the trails. I think that there's just so many different aspects to trail running and running in general. But on the trails, like I got found out for not really being great at hiking up steep hills or coming down really steep descents or running really technical terrain
Hmm.
um, or staying on course. There's just so
Or
many
staying on course.
so many aspects to it. So um, yeah, I think in trail running, it really showed like um, all the different individual abilities that people have, and you can really play those off to your strengths and your weaknesses. Which I saw with like Matt Crean. I was with him up until the hills, and then we hit the hills, and he just absolutely flew. Like it was so impressive. And he was like coming 10th with me and ended up coming second. Like
Hmm.
it's just freakish. And I think he put like, I don't know, 20 minutes or something, 25 minutes on me in the back half over the hills, which is just like insane.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
I think that really preaches to each one has their individual strengths and weaknesses. I think in road running and track running, it's still there as well. Like some people are really fast, some people have good kind of aerobic engines and perform better at those events. Um, but that still lets them run well in any event. But
Hmm.
yeah, what
This
about you,
one,
Smitty?
this one, I have a sort of conflicting. Definitely, I agree. Well,
Mm,
it's not much to disagree with, but in the sense, like, I just think of people that are more tuned to the marathon as opposed to 5K or 3K or 1500, or just
mm,
sort of the way people lean in terms of their preference. But I've often thought, like, how much do you tell yourself that you're not good at something versus, you know what I mean? Like, oh, I'm not. How much is it the story you tell yourself? I'm not actually that fast versus you
yeah.
haven't trained for that, um, for that aspect.
Mm,
So I think it's important to make that distinction. Like you've got to put in the work in all those different buckets, but appreciate that maybe you won't be, you know, as natural at speed work as opposed to longer distance stuff. Does that kind of make sense?
yeah, definitely. And I think you can't let that just become an excuse as to why you're not good at something
Yep.
and you don't bother to touch on it.
Yep.
Which is I think that's a really good point because that can easily happen if you're not good at something. Then you
That
don't find
applies
it.
to anything, right?
Yeah, 100%.
With like with speed stuff, I kind of early on in my running used that as an excuse, like, oh, I'm not that, because I just got comfortable with running longer distance stuff, like your long
Mm,
runs, more threshold work, and then I'd be like, yeah, I'm not that, like in terms of 5K speed, don't feel that fast. But then when you look back, like I barely do any faster stuff,
yeah.
so
So
it's just a
how
cop
do you
out.
expect to be
Yeah,
good
yeah.
at the fast stuff if you're not doing
So
anything?
if you're looking at point one, it's like, yeah, maybe I just told myself a story as to I'm not I'm not that fast. But
Mm,
yeah, important to make that distinction just from my own experience and not give
yeah,
yourself a
definitely.
way out because you don't want to do speed work. um, Um, yeah, I don't know. Probably, how do you think people can determine? Like, you got to give it a good block of diverse training before you can make the distinction. Would you say?
Yeah. Um, and I think like, yeah, if you maybe just target like a 5K, then you'll have to do some faster training for that.
Mm,
Or if you target a marathon, you'll have to do more
mm,
aerobic training for that. But yeah, I think that you have to be pretty well rounded and balanced. Like a good runner can do everything. Kipchoge can run like a sub 2 minute 800 easy.
mm.
So he's still fast.
Yeah.
Even um, he can probably go one sub 150. Like yeah, and I think his PBs on the track kind of reflect that as well. Like he's
Mm,
sub 13 5K guy. Um, yeah, he got bronze at the world champs for the 5K.
yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I think that's kind of like case in point. You have to kind of be good at everything to be a good runner. So
Mm.
yeah, while you have your strengths and weaknesses, you still need to pay attention to all areas.
Yeah, so that even applies to someone like Kipchoge, for example. He never, well, when he transitioned to the marathon is when he really took off, although he had a very successful career beforehand. But then he went to that sort of greatest runner of all time status sort of thing.
Yeah, so that kind of
When
shows.
maybe that's his strength per
Yeah,
se.
yeah.
But still incredible. Like you can't say he really has a weakness for speed.
No, same as like Killian Jornet. Like
Yeah.
he's the best runner on the trails by far, but he can still run a sub 30 10K.
Yep.
Like I think that kind of shows it as well. Like he's still good at everything.
Mm, mm. Okay. Point one: every runner has specific individual abilities and with unique strengths and weaknesses. Okay. Point two, Dom: a runner's focus must stay positive. This is a big one.
Definitely.
What are your thoughts on that?
I think that yeah, it's it definitely kind of rings true. I think yeah, Matt Crean was talking about it how in ultras people get into different headspaces, and if you're in that negative headspace, you're not going to have a good time.
Hmm.
But it's all perspective, really. I think like at Buffalo for me, I kind of felt it when things weren't really going my way.
Yep.
I carried like a few expectations into the race, and then when I went off course for the first time, I kind of like my headspace changed immediately. I was like, oh shit, now I got to catch up.
Yeah.
And then I was rushing to catch up, and I fell over, and then my headspace changed again. It was kind of good I fell over, I think, because I was able to just relax and say, okay, like settle down, mate. You're not like the next best thing. Like just get through this thing. um, and yeah, I think that having the right headspace is so important. And I felt like even in that little half an hour period, my headspace changed so much. But yeah, I was able to kind of flip it to somewhere positive, fortunately. But yeah, I've pulled out of races before because I just was doubting myself. Um, like, yeah, running a 10K on the track, I got to 5Ks in and had to stop running. And it was all mental. My body was, I don't know, not that bad. But I think that, yeah, being in the right headspace is so important.
Mm.
Um, yeah, what about you, Smitty?
Yeah, I think it makes such a difference in racing and in training. I think Rosie was speaking about it as well in
Mm,
sort of your when we were talking about the 10K. When you start getting in a negative mindset during the race, you have a kind of like a almost a split second to fight against those negative thoughts,
yeah.
which I thought was a really good point around, just even analyzing my own races, how when you start falling off the pace or it starts hurting,
Mm,
you think you can you can sort of go with that energy, and then it's almost like a self-fulfilling thing. Once you start thinking like that, you'll then start performing in alignment with how you're thinking.
Yeah, definitely.
And then it just falls apart, and it's like, so so the good thing is we do, to some degree, well, um we definitely do have the choice to stay positive. It's just not always easy,
Mm,
um but it's very important if you want to perform well. And I think my best performances have come when, like, sort of, you're in a race and the environment's good and it starts clicking, and then you start thinking positively, and then you can
mm,
start really challenging challenging your body and pushing yourself, because you're like, this is working, and you sort of, it's an upward spiral, if that makes
yeah.
sense.
Mm,
um but the same is true for negative, like, if you start thinking negatively in you know in a session or in a race. I can
mm.
what's an example in
It's
sunrise?
funny.
What were you gonna say,
Yeah.
Dom?
Oh, I was just thinking, like, I've had, yeah, experiences like in Canberra Marathon.
Mm,
I missed, like, I've kind of like muddled up my drinks, and I wasn't expecting that to happen because you had to go find your drink, and it was just amongst about, I don't know, 100 other drinks,
mm,
and I wasted about a minute trying to look for my drink, and the pack got away from me. And if I wasn't so fired up for the race and, like, just ready to run, and I don't know, I felt like my headspace was so good. I was just in this positive mood that the little setbacks I could deal with, and
mm,
just relax enough and say, "Oh, that's all right. Like, I'll catch up to the pack eventually." And I kind of took my time over the next few k's and slowly caught them rather than just speeding off and trying to get back on. But I think that, yeah, that seems like a pretty clear experience where it's gone okay for me.
mm.
But yeah, sorry, the sun run. That's
Oh,
a
Sunrun, I
tough
remember.
event. Yeah.
Yeah, I just remember, like, wanting to break 35 and
Mm,
not being at Sunrun. We all know that's, anyone that's run that race knows it's pretty difficult to do that, just because
definitely.
of how hilly it is. But I wasn't respecting where I was at physically at the time, or in terms of fitness. And, like, you get in the race, and I went out a bit too quick, and you start hurting, and then it's like pretty much game over. And then
Mm,
you mentally start trying to claw it, like, oh, I'm not running 330s. Well,
mm.
I'm running 340s, and then you're like, oh, fuck this shit. I'm sick of this.
Yeah.
You know what? You can go downhill very quickly.
Yeah.
And then you get to the hill at 7Ks. You're kind of like, you're kidding. I'm already hurting so much. And it's just a shit, becomes a shit fight if you don't control yourself and come back in.
Mm,
But I mean,
yeah.
a lot of the work to stay positive, I've found at least, is done in the months before the race.
Yeah. Having the confidence in yourself and the belief in yourself that
Mm,
no matter what you do, it's going to be a good result. And that doesn't depend on just what the time is.
yeah,
I think that's what's special about the marathon. Like, just finishing a marathon is impressive in itself,
yeah.
regardless of what the time is. And that kind of helped me. Like, when I ran Canberra, I was, I don't know, 2 minutes off what my dream goal would be of sub 230. But I know it didn't phase me at the time. Like, it was just kind of finish the marathon.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
I mean, yeah, I mean, 230, 232. It's pretty good, Dom.
Yeah. Well, I think, like, yeah, knowing, like, oh, this is still going to be a very respectable time,
Yep.
helped as well. Um, but I think it's easy to kind of just weigh yourself on a time goal and
Mm,
how you're traveling to that. Whereas, like, at the end of the day, it doesn't mean anything. And I think it's pretty clear when you talk about your run to other people and say, everyone says, "Oh, congratulations,"
yeah.
but it's only you who holds that kind of opinion of how your performance actually went and how you were relative to whatever.
Mm.
You could have a terrible day and everyone says congratulations, or you could have a great day, everyone says congratulations. Like,
Yeah, yeah, it
um,
makes no
yeah,
makes yeah, it's very internal.
and I don't know, why don't you? I think you've got the opportunity to have that same opinion in your own mind. Like, you can congratulate yourself if you've I don't know, if things didn't go to plan and you were able to keep your mind in the game, and I think that's just as impressive as when everything goes right and you achieve your goal.
Yeah, I think that ties into sort of don't be so hard on yourself regardless of the result, and try and find positive aspects in everything. But I think
Mm,
if I think back to, I'll give another example. If I think back to Sydney Harbour 10, although it was such a great um, day and it was a pretty good race, but I had done a lot of mucking around in training, like the in the build up, which actually
mm,
like you can't lie to yourself. You know what I mean? You can't just say like start thinking positively on the day.
no.
You can't undo. I wasn't able to undo sort of, you know, um, I was missed a few key sessions in the build up. I was going out a little bit too much, you know, drinking a little bit too much. That plays in the back of your mind when you're on race day, because as
Mm,
opposed to having like such a great build up,
yeah.
um, so sometimes it's hard to like just say think positive
Yeah, it's
if you
much
haven't,
easier.
like if you haven't done what you know you need to do to perform, as opposed to like training, nailing a lot of your training block in the marathon and getting up to
Mm,
the start date
yeah. I
and
think you
lining
need to
up and
be
being
like,
like, yeah, I've done everything I can.
yeah, you need to have like a big scary goal kind of to
Mm,
keep you accountable.
yeah,
Um, but
yeah,
yeah, it's much easier said than done staying positive.
it really is. But thank you, Mr. Daniels, for noting that one down. But it is a good point, and it's one that
Mm,
there's so many different ways to work on how to stay positive, and it's very individual. You
yeah.
can't, like Dom and I can't say, well, you should just like, you know, think positive. I
Yeah,
don't,
I think
I
Rosie's
don't.
strategy is a good one.
That's a good
Like,
one in the
yeah,
short, like when you're in the thick of it,
mm,
to sort of, you can just sort of turn your thoughts around. But I'm talking about that deeper conviction you have about where you're at is difficult
mm,
sometimes to fight against.
yeah. All right.
Anyway, um, yeah, point number 3 is expect ups and downs. Some days are better than others.
Mm.
What do you reckon, Dom?
Yeah, I think that's a good point. We kind of touched on it a little bit
Yeah.
um, previously, but I think just in training, like you will be in a really heavy block, and yeah, you might not be able to run as well as you thought you'd be able to. But sometimes that can kind of play on your mind a bit. But you just got to take it, trust the process, and yeah, just because you're not the best on this day doesn't mean that you're not getting better.
Mm.
Yeah, I can remember sometimes I've just been absolutely smashing myself, and I tried to do like a park run and ran a pretty average time, what
Fingal
I
Bay
thought.
or
Fingal Bay is the only race that Smitty's ever beaten, the Fingal Bay Park Run. Um, and
I
yeah.
outkicked him as well. Sub to 800-meter runner. Outkicked him.
Yeah, I
Sorry.
think, yeah, I don't know.
That was that's my finest moment. I had to chuck that in there.
I don't know. I was happy enough with that though. I think I still went sub 17, which is a good, solid 5K run.
Yeah, but
Um,
you were absolutely fuming.
it was because you had super shoes and I didn't.
Oh, here we
That's
go.
why.
All right.
That's add 4% or take 4% off my time, and then I've got you.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, you got to expect the up days. You got to, and down days like, I don't know. Sometimes Smitty will beat you at Fingal Bay Park Run, but just trust the process, and yeah, you'll get there in the long run.
Sometimes Smitty will beat you at Fingal Bay Park Run, and being ties into the lowest of the low for Dom. Yeah, look, don't have much more to add to that. I don't know. Dom summed it up perfectly. You don't want to lose to me at Fingal Bay, but anyway. Um, So basically, I think this one for me comes down to in training. Um, yeah, definitely. There's so many variables on how you're going to feel in a training day, especially if you're training. If you're in, like Dom said, if you're in a heavy training block and you've done a big long run on Sunday, then you've got a session on Tuesday, Wednesday, and you in your head you've got I've got to hit these times, and you
Mm,
sort of don't, and then it can weigh on your mind throughout the week and even leading into other sessions when a single training session is not a good indicator for how your overall fitness is,
mm.
especially in the middle of a training block. So I think this point speaks to perspective, just
Yeah,
having some perspective.
definitely. I think if you do have a bad day, though, it's worthwhile kind of thinking about, okay, why did I have a bad day?
Yep.
Um, and I don't know, maybe it is because you're a bad runner, but it's probably not. And there's probably something you could change to identify why
Yeah.
that was a bad day. Like you could be going in after a big block of training, or I don't know, you've had a big day at work, or and you're stressed kind of mentally, or you're not wearing super shoes at Fingal Bay. So I don't know. There's many reasons why you could have a bad day. So I
That's a
think that
good point.
it's worth kind of thinking a bit deeper into why your session's gone not the way you wanted it to go,
Yep.
rather than just kind of completely uh, neglecting it and just saying, "Oh, no, it's part of the process. Keep chugging on."
Yeah, I think that's a great distinction to make because the negative is almost like it's a feedback mechanism, and it should be treated like a feedback mechanism for you to sort of sit back, exactly like you're saying, Dom, and
Yeah.
analyze. Maybe you're in a training and you're not hitting the times, you feel like absolute rubbish. Maybe you're loading, I don't know, maybe you're going too hard or you're overtraining, or there's many things that could be happening, but I guess
Mm,
it's up to every runner to determine that themselves. But in a sense, the thing is, don't dwell on. I think not dwelling on it is the best, and if you need to make a corrective action, then that's probably what you need to do. Um, but yeah, move forward, move forward.
mm,
Wait,
definitely. All
yeah.
right.
All right. Number
That
4.
is point number 3.
That was
Expect ups and downs. Some days better than others. Point number 4. Be flexible in the training to allow for the unexpected.
ooh.
Um, what do you think about this one, Smitty?
I think I remember reading like this is more to the fact that you can change. Don't be too rigid in. For example, you have a training block and there's this horrendous weather.
Mm.
Don't be afraid to just shift, move the hard session to another day when the weather's maybe going to be a little bit better.
I
Um,
guess this is a good one for you. Like the lead up for the half marathon, there's been a lot of rainy days, rainy weeks where I don't know. You've been on the podcast whinging, saying, "Oh, I didn't run today; it was too wet." But you still ran a great Canberra half marathon, so I don't know.
yeah, I guess, but yeah, can't give myself. Otherwise, whenever there's a slight, oh, it's a bit cold today. Probably shouldn't get out for a
Yeah.
run. Maybe I'll put it off for tomorrow. Oh, it's a bit wet. It's not like I have a shower every day. But anyway,
Mm. Yeah, it's funny. One of the turbo runners, Adam, he was saying he listens to the podcast, and he said, "Oh, Smitty, I love that guy. Like he's always yeah, whinging about how his training's going and it's never going well for him." But I found that so funny. Um, that no, it does
yeah,
go well for you, and you just ran a great race. So
yeah. No,
yeah.
I get. I'm probably tuned more to the negative.
Hmm.
I think I overweigh the negative a little bit too much, um, because you want to hit, like when you set a training week, you want to hit everything, and then when something doesn't go to plan, you
Hmm.
automatically think that it's gonna be. um, it's not going well, and this is a negative thing, which so it kind of ties back into point two about staying positive, and then
Definitely.
also allowing yourself and being flexible in training. So yeah.
Yeah, I think I can remember having a coach and being given splits to hit for a session, and I swear I would never hit the splits. Um, and yeah, that used to always kind of play with my head a little bit. But like, you need to take this into account. Like, you need to be flexible and yeah, expect the unexpected and allow for it. Like, if you're running on a hilly kind of loop or something, you're not going to be able to run the same times that you'd run on a track. Um, and yeah, I don't know, maybe it's a bit windy, maybe it's a bit rainy. Like, you can't just be so hard on yourself all the time during sessions. So yeah, I think it's a good point, and I don't know, you can't let time or I don't know whatever your performance is be the kind of be all and end all. But yeah, it's good feedback, and again, you just need to investigate every session a little bit deeper. Say like, why did I run that, or whatever happened.
Mm, yeah, definitely. And I guess if you don't have, um, if you're not very clear on why you're running, it's gonna fall apart pretty quickly. So for most people that stick with it, I guess they're pretty clear on why they're running, like what the sort of benefits that it provides them and the joy they get and all that sort of stuff. So I
Mm,
guess it's probably not, a lot of these things are not enough to take a runner off course completely,
mm,
but you don't want to start developing really negative a negative relationship with training, because I mean at the end of the day we don't have to train like this. Like, we could all
yeah.
just get out and run 20 minutes, 40 minutes in the morning, but
Mm,
essentially we do it because we love getting fitter, and just, for me at least, you just love training and pushing yourself and seeing where you can go. So
definitely.
I don't even know what point I was trying to make, to be honest.
But yeah, I think that's why one of the reasons why like I ended up getting rid of the coach, because yeah, it was just mentally it was too much,
Yeah.
and I kind of lost that joy for running. I
Mm,
was just worrying about how I was going to run in this next session, and am
mm,
I able to hit the splits and do what was planned.
yeah.
Um, Whereas yeah, coaching yourself, you've got a lot more flexibility to I don't know, if you're feeling bad one day, you can I don't know, change the session or do whatever you want. But that can be dangerous too.
Mm, yeah.
And I
Dangerous for
think that,
me.
yeah, I think a coach would still allow you to do that, but it's just a bit harder when you're telling someone else, like, I couldn't do this for whatever reason, and you have to justify it a bit more.
Mm,
But I don't know, everyone's different, and yeah,
yeah, we
suits
all.
some people. I think that
Yeah.
having a coach, though, definitely helped my running go to another level. And in those 6 months, I improved a hell of a lot. But yeah, I lost a bit of the fun of running.
Yeah. And I think it's funny because it's such an individual. Such an individual thing. Because for
Mm,
me, getting a coach was the catalyst for me taking training a little bit more seriously and sort of getting it, because I was in a negative basically all my whinging on the podcast was coming down to like losing a little bit of motivation for training, because I've been training in the same way for so long, and also just I don't have accountability except to you know to myself, which I know you should be self motivated for the most part, but having accountability of a coach was massive, in the sense
mm,
that, like, someone's setting a program, they're putting
yeah.
all this effort there, and then like all you have to do is run and follow it.
Mm,
Made it easier for me mentally, and I it's a big reason why I probably, even though we just started training, I think it made a big difference even leading into Canberra.
mm,
But it comes back to sort of expecting the ups and downs some days, but like that's come from analyzing how I'm feeling. throughout training. Just like you're saying, like you're analyzing how you're feeling and sort of asking yourself questions. What can I do to change this? This is what I do for enjoyment and fun. I need to make some adjustments. Same with me. I just made different adjustments based on my own personal experience. And I think the important thing is to ask those questions to yourself and try and find the answers. We're not always going to make the right decisions, but as long as we're sort of searching. But yeah, so be flexible in training, allow for the unexpected. Point number 5, set intermediate goals. What do you reckon about this one, Dom?
Yeah, I think set intermediate goals is super important. Yeah, you can't eat the elephant. You just got to chunk it up into little bites. I don't know. I think I've just butchered that saying, but it's something like that.
No, you. I'm pretty sure it's a good point. You can't just start gnawing at the elephant.
Yeah. But yeah, I think that this helps with your mindset, it helps with everything. Like being able to tick off little boxes along the way. And you can see yourself kind of trending in the right direction towards a big goal. Yeah, I think that this is what almost makes running enjoyable is setting the little intermediate goals and being able to execute on them. It's a pretty satisfying feeling. And you look back on a training block and you think, oh, that was like some of the best training I've ever done or some of the best running I've ever done. And it's not the race that you're looking at, it's the whole training block and all those little intermediate goals that you were able to execute along the way. So I think that, yeah, having little small, realistic, actionable goals is super important.
Yeah, I think about this like, for example, your goal of running sub 30 at one point. If you just were to focus on that, it's just would be pretty tricky mentally, right?
Yeah.
As opposed to like setting a goal for a race and saying I want to hit this time, or this is what I'm working towards, um,
Mm.
and then making it achievable and realistic for your current fitness.
Mm.
Um, and then sort of because you just want to see ultimately we just want to see ourselves improve, right?
Yeah.
So any improvement is good. But if you set the bar, like for example, me saying after I ran around Penrith Lakes, whatever, I can't, yeah, what it was 230, 237 or something, or just below, and then saying, okay, next marathon want to run sub 230, and then
Mm.
not quite understanding exactly how much difference that fitness level is,
Mm.
and then trying to set that goal, and then you come in training and you're like, well, I'm nowhere near marathon pace being 333s at
Mm.
all. And then sort of getting discouraged um, because the goal is too the it's really it's a hard medium point between making like setting
Yeah.
a high goal and kind of going after it and it being unrealistic for the current time. So um, in that situation, it'd be better to set a goal sub 230 for like a year and a half down the track or 2 years and then have an intermediate goal to just improve on your marathon and
Mm.
in the short term and hit track like do some better training and have because then you have all the goals in between in training like in sessions and say okay I want to finish this session so
Mm.
there's many different levels of having your own goals which are
Mm.
important even down
Yeah.
to the on your long run or something like that.
Mm.
Would
I
you
think,
agree with that?
yeah, definitely. It's a tough sport because it's so measurable.
Mm,
And like you can see quite clearly how you're tracking towards your time based goal. Um, so, yeah, I know. I think it's important to just kind of recognize that running is more than just times
mm,
sometimes. Because I
mm.
think that if you set a goal, it's like a little bit out of reach. Yeah, you can kind of get a bit down on yourself. But yeah, you have to kind of stay motivated and think about, okay, what can I do differently to get better? Uh, yeah, but I remember, yeah, trying to run sub 2. I thought it would take a year and I'd be able to do it in a season, but I ran like 203, 204, 202, and it took me like 3 years of seasons of running. Yeah, just like low 2 minutes, but never breaking 2 minutes. And then, yeah, it finally happened. But I think that if my thoughts were a bit different and I said, okay, let's just try and go sub 203 this season, instead of running 205 for the season, I might have run 202.
Mm.
But the goal was to run sub 2 minutes, and that 5 seconds just meant I cooked myself a bit too much, maybe, or didn't train properly. I think that, yeah, if you're not training in that sweet spot for your ability, then you won't really perform to the best that you could. So it's so important to set the right goals and have those intermediate goals that are appropriate for where you're at.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Um, yeah, there's been so many instances where, but that's just part of the learning process of
Mm,
running and training. We're all still we're all still learning. Like I've only just started understanding where my body's at and sort of how I
yeah.
react to training. And I don't even think I've really scratched the surface. And it's been probably 3 years of
Mm,
like decent amount of training. There's still so much. There's still so much to. It's just a constant process, essentially, of correcting
yeah.
course. But that's a good way. That's a good way to stay positive. It ties in is make the goals realistic and sort of work towards them and
Yeah.
sort of have a patient try and have a patient mindset and
Mm,
sort of give yourself you have to give yourself a little bit of data on how you're like where you're at and then sort of set those goals based on that data.
yeah.
So
It's
you
tough though, because like your ego comes into it
oh mate massively
and you
so
think, I'm better than this. Like,
yeah then you're like you're like oh yeah like set the goal to sub 230 and it's like I want to be realistic but then yeah Mr. Ego comes in and he's like nah, stop being. That's just a cop out. Like you can do this. It's like nah, just
yeah.
relax, bud. Relax.
But then, like, I guess it comes back to that thing. Like, everyone, after you finish the race, everyone congratulates you.
Mm.
So I don't know. Your ego is just you. Like, um, yeah, I don't know.
Mate, the
I think
ego is
saying
a
that, yeah,
massive topic.
it's tough. It's very tough. Yeah.
Oh my
Anyways,
god. Yeah. Um. Okay. Point number 6. Concentrate on the task at hand. What do you reckon, Dom?
concentrate on the task at hand. Yeah, I think that kind of ties in nicely. They all kind of tie in nicely to each other.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, you kind of just have to train for where you're at and worry about what you're doing, not like what someone else is doing. I think Strava's terrible for this. Like, you can
Mm.
see how everyone else is training, and you start comparing yourself to everyone else.
Yep.
Whereas if you were to just focus on what you were doing, you'd be a lot better off. And I think that that's what all the best runners in the world do. They don't really. A lot of them aren't even on Strava. Like, you don't see. I don't know. I'm not sure if Kilian Jornet is on Strava or if I know Kipchoge's not on Strava. But yeah, I think that probably helps you stay humble and just focused on the task at hand. Um, yeah, I think that it's very important.
Mm.
But yeah, a lot easier said than done.
Mm. I think we have a sort of human nature is essentially we're always trying to automatically weight ourselves against different people like how we're comparing to different people it's just an automatic thing that we do I
Mm,
you're thinking like even at work like where am I sort of sitting here comparing to
yeah,
other people you can't help it you know that
definitely.
you shouldn't you know you know that it doesn't matter at a at a logical level,
Yeah.
or you shouldn't focus on it because it's not healthy. But I think it's
Mm.
just the way we've been hardwired in a sense. And then when you're training and you're looking at Strava and you're as you're saying, Dom, you're comparing yourself to other people. It can put you in a negative, because if your expectations aren't aligning, it's an impossible thing because you're not the other
Mm.
person.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like
It's crazy. And
you're you, and all you can do is concentrate on the next session,
mm,
realistically.
100%.
Um,
And
s-
everyone's so different. Like,
yeah,
I think that, like, the way people eat, and like, that's like a pretty clear example. Like, if there was a Strava for what you eat, and everyone was trying to follow, like, oh, what's this guy eating? It would be absolutely terrible because, like, I don't know what one person eats will kill another person. Like,
yeah,
um, I think that that's it's everyone's just so unique and individual that there's no point in like trying to compare yourself to someone else and trying to like do what they do or um, yeah, I think you just got to really concentrate on the task at hand and think about how is this appropriate for me? What should I be doing right now? It's a very
mm,
selfish sport like that. But,
yeah.
yeah.
But that comes back to anything, like
Mm,
it, just in your life, anything you want to improve, anything. I don't know. It's always the tendency is to make it about sort of external things.
mm,
Um, but if you're making it, it's more like focusing on what you're doing specifically to improve yourself is much more beneficial than sort of comparing yourself to it's like you will never be able to control um other people or anything like that. So yeah, it's a big
mm.
one. That's a big one.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think that's a pretty important one.
Mm. So I think it's a bit of a mix, but I guess yeah, concentrating on the task at hand.
Mm.
Um, if you think more specifically, do you think basically when it comes to um, a session, because we talked about goals, right?
Mm.
So you're setting goals too far in the long term. That also takes you away from concentrating on the task at hand.
Yeah,
Um,
definitely, 100%.
yeah, yeah.
It's that kind of losing touch with where you're at. Um, yeah, you just need to think about where am I right now and what can I do to kind of progress my abilities. Um, what's the most appropriate action to take to do that?
Mm, yeah.
But yeah,
All right. Point number 7. Most mistakes in races are made early in the race. Tom, what do you think about that one, mate?
oh yeah, I think this is a good one for me. Yeah, it's funny. I've run so many races, and so many of them have just been blow ups, struggling in the back half. But the races that went well, I've managed to, I don't know, kind of not to go out too hard and pace myself at a level where I'm still pushing myself, but just on that limit um, where I'm not overcooking it. So I think it's hard to find that limit, but it's very easy to go over it. And you're probably better off staying a little bit under it. But I don't know. It's much easier to say than do. I think I've said that a number of times on this podcast. But yeah, I think this one in particular, like at the start of a race, it's just so easy to go out hard and then, pay for it.
You got to credit Beck for getting you your original sub 16, wasn't it?
No, I went sub 16 a few times, but then I had a big
Oh, that was the big 5K, wasn't
breakthrough.
it? Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I was like just breaking 16 in maybe 3 races. And then one race came around. I think because I had already broken 16, I was like, oh, there's no pressure. Just run as fast as you can, try and get under 16 again. And I ended up running, 15:31, which was just
Wow.
like incredible because I was only just breaking 16, and that was like a huge push. But I was doing that on my own, just like in time trials pretty much. So it
Yeah.
kind of made sense that if I was in a race, I would run a bit faster. But being in the race with the pack and everything helped me to judge my pacing a lot better. So I think that can help a lot if you know you're in a pack of runners who are about the same ability as you.
Yeah.
That'll help you keep track of, okay, these guys are the 15:30 runners. I think at about that level. I'll stick with these guys for the first little bit of the race and then see how I'm feeling and go from there. That's a much better strategy than going out hard um,
Yeah.
and then blowing up.
Yeah. Um, yeah, it's a good point. It's a good distinction to make and keep in the back of your mind. But as you said, easier said than done, especially when you go into a race, you want to sort of you want to run best you can, and you're tapered. If you're tapered as well,
Mm,
you can. It's easy to go out like feeling good, especially in a 5K. To
yeah,
go out first kilometer, first like 2Ks, feeling good before you've really started to engage that harder running,
mm,
and your body, it's feeling difficult before it starts really feeling difficult for your body. And if you go out too hard, for the most part, you're just going to be hurting way more in the back half, and also just you won't be able to sustain the effort.
yeah. I think
Um,
it's like your whole body kind of like starts seizing up when you're
mm,
pushing too hard as well. And like, I think mentally you start stressing yourself too much and everything just isn't good. Like you need to just stay relaxed and calm and in control when you're running. And yeah, going out too hard is not a great way to do that.
mm, yeah, I
And I
know.
think like
Yeah,
yeah, it's taken me a long time, but now I can finally recognize this, and I feel like the last few races that I've done, I've been able to take it a bit easier. But I think maybe it comes with a bit of maturity as well. Like for a lot of the time when I've been running, I was in my early 20s and um, just kind of bulletproof sort of mindset, like I can do
yeah,
this, whatever. But yeah, it's tough.
yeah. It's tough, and every distance has a different sort of strategy for pacing as well.
Mm,
So you got to navigate that depending on what race you want to achieve. Specifically, the marathon. You look at you look at the marathon, and you're like, if you go out too hard in the
mm,
marathon, you're never it will never end well.
yeah,
Um, and unfortunately, in the marathon, what feels, especially to a really fit marathon runner, when they go out, like it's going to feel easy the first 15Ks,
mm,
realistically. Not
definitely.
easy, but like it's not going to feel it's not going to feel ridiculous. Um you're still below your true threshold, and you're below your half marathon pace, so it's not really hurting. But then
Mm,
if you go out at like anywhere near half marathon pace, you're just going to be cooked by 25Ks,
yeah,
sort of thing. So I guess the longer, maybe it's fair to say the longer the race, the more, actually probably not, because then when you go to ultras, it's a different game. Like you're never going to go out too hard in an ultra, right?
yeah. I think in ultra it's a bit different because like you got hills and tricky terrain and all the rest. Like
Mm.
it's very difficult to judge it. Um, Especially like the Buffalo Stampede, the first half was all downhill, and then you hit the hills. I think that you probably could go out a bit quicker
Yeah.
because I don't know. Once you hit the downhills, you just need to still be able to. I don't know. I've got no idea. It's just difficult.
No,
um,
that's fair.
Sorry,
um
mate. Can I quickly go to the bathroom?
yeah, mate.
We're back.
We're back, and now we're back. Oh, we have to go.
And we're back.
We're back. Okay. What were we talking about? No, 7. Okay, most mistakes in races are made early in the
Okay.
race. We know about
Yeah.
that one. All
So we've
right.
covered that one off.
Now, 8. This is a big one. Um, Training should be rewarding.
Mm.
What do you think about? I think we've already touched on that a little bit, but yeah, what
Mm.
are your thoughts on that, Dom?
Yeah, I think this is a good one. Yeah, training should be rewarding. I think most sessions that I finish, I feel like you've got that runner's high or whatever everyone talks about, and you feel like, yeah, that was a great session. I really enjoyed that. But sometimes I feel like I put too much pressure on myself and I don't know, go out too hard in the session and end up walking it in pretty much. Um,
Which ties back into
and
point number 7.
yeah, definitely. I think that kind of applies for not only races but training sessions as well.
Mm,
Um, but yeah, most of the time training does feel rewarding, and I think training in the group helps it to be rewarding as well.
yeah.
Um, yeah, but training should definitely always be rewarding.
Mm.
Um,
Um, yeah, this is an interesting one. Like for the most part, similar to what you said, when you finish a when you finish a hard training session, it's definitely not during. There's a lot of pain, depending
mm,
on what the session is. But ultimately, after you finish the session, it's rewarding, and you're left feeling um, quite satisfied, and especially if you've exceeded your expectations, or I don't know, if it just
mm,
felt like it was going well, or even if you just were not feeling great and you were really reluctant to start the session, but you've sort of gone through it and still trained hard and come through the session, then it can be rewarding at the end as well.
mm,
Um, so yeah, even just looking at how hard you push I don't know. There's an element of the ego in that, I guess, but like just seeing, the work that you've done, for example,
mm,
um, is rewarding, and it should be. Yeah, and I think we were talking about it with Rosie about how addictive seeing the progress is,
mm,
and that comes down to training. Like when you start doing a threshold workout and you've sort of benchmarked yourself and it's trending in the upward direction, you really
mm.
start feeling that reward.
Yeah, definitely. When you feel like, yeah, I'm fitter than I was last week, um, yeah, that's a really good feeling. Or
Mm.
like you feel like you're at the fittest you've ever been. That definitely feels pretty incredible.
Yeah, yeah. Um, okay. Point number 9: eat and sleep well. Another big
Mm,
one.
definitely.
Um,
I think that, yeah, recovery is like equally important as training, and eating and sleeping well kind of are the two key components. Probably make up, I don't know, 70% of what recovery entails, or
hmm.
80%. We'll go with the 80-20 ratio.
Yeah,
Pareto's rule. But yeah, I think that it's that 80-20. Yeah, like
yeah,
eating well, sleeping well, uh, definitely important. And I think that everyone roughly knows how to eat well and roughly knows how to sleep well. But yeah, you just need to kind of dial in those habits and routines.
mm,
And for me, that was, yeah, a pretty key sort of factor in when I ran my 10K PB, and I felt like that was possibly the fittest I've ever been. So yeah, it's definitely worth paying attention to, and it's not as sexy as running well and doing all these crazy sessions, but that's kind of where the gold is. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I agree. And Mr. Daniels makes a very specific point that rest, rest and good nutrition are parts of training, not things that are
Mm.
done outside of training.
Yeah, definitely.
So it's that's if you want to perform well, it's just a key component of your training block, which is different because I mean, when I first started, and actually no, like always, you don't weight, sort of the running and the training is the thing you weight more heavily than a lot of the
Mm.
recovery sometimes, or for me at least, and
Yeah.
focusing, I guess a bit of a catalyst for me is taking a break from taking a break from drinking has sort of tied in well with getting good rest and stuff like that, because I was typically being a little bit silly with going on nights out. And if you go out on a Friday night and absolutely
Mm,
hammer yourself, then you're not going to do wonders for your training, but also you're just not going to sleep well, and then it'll sort of play on your mind into the weekend, or for a few days. And if you compound that, if you do a few of those instances over a training block, it makes a difference. I
mm,
feel so. But that also comes down to what you're talking about, which is habits, like getting in the habit of um, resting and sleeping well, and then getting in the habit of eating well, and then mentally understanding that it's a part of the, like, if you're serious about training, it has to be a part of the training block. It can't be an
mm.
afterthought, I guess.
Yeah, definitely. I think that, yeah, like the best athletes are always pretty like relaxed, and yeah, I think if you're eating well and you're sleeping well, then it helps you to stay relaxed as well.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely. We know,
yeah,
like, Kipchoge sleeps 10 hours,
yeah,
like 2 hour napping throughout the day and 8 hours at night.
mm,
And most athletes maximize sleep, just from what we know about its restorative benefits. Um, so
mm. I think there
yeah,
are some freaks out there who are just kind of like relaxed all the time,
Liam
and
Adams probably
yeah,
probably
Liam
probably
Adams far
doesn't
out.
sleep.
And I can
Uh,
remember being in the 800-meter squad. Like those guys were national level athletes, international level athletes. But there were some people who were just really talented, and it seemed like they were just always kind of relaxed and nothing phased them. But other people just worked really hard, and they were probably always just carrying around a little bit of stress with them.
mm,
But the like talented guys in the end kind of kept on improving, whereas the guys who were like stressing a bit, they became really good runners, but they kind of plateaued a little bit more. So I
yeah,
think if you're relaxed, and um, I think eating and sleeping well helps you stay relaxed.
yeah, 100%, 100%. Okay, point number 10: don't train when sick or injured. Pretty self-explanatory.
Mm.
But have you ever trained when you've been sick, or tried to train through some form of an illness?
Um, I don't know. Usually, like if you're sick, you feel like shit,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
um, like you try and go for a run, and you can tell this is not good for me. So I've gone for runs before when I'm sick, and like just didn't help at all. I can remember when I was young though, we used to go surfing all the time, and one time I had like bronchitis, and just tried to keep surfing. It just got worse and worse, and like ended up almost with like pneumonia, just because I wanted to, yeah, hang out with dad and the boys and stuff.
yeah, yeah,
Like
yeah. That's
yeah,
easily done.
but yeah, you got to respect your body, and um, it comes down to that recovery again, I guess. Like
Yeah.
if you can't recover, you shouldn't be training.
Well, I mean, what you're doing when you're training essentially is stressing your body, and then trying to
Mm,
trying to recover from the stress. If you're already sick, you just probably need to sort that thing out first, and then go back
definitely.
to that pummeling your body and recovering,
Yeah.
and repeating that process. So,
Mm.
um, point number 11. This is probably a disclaimer for Dr. Daniels: is check chronic health issues should be checked by a professional. We probably don't need to touch on that one too much.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, if you're chronically ill, don't listen to With the Chief's advice.
Yeah.
This is actually, we need to have a disclaimer. None of this advice should be mistaken for what do they always say? Mistaken for
Like
professional advice.
personal
Please,
advice. Yeah,
yes,
whatever.
please go
Yeah.
to your doctor. Thank you. Okay. Um, I don't know why I had an accent then, but anyway. Number 12: a good run or race is never a fluke.
Yeah. A good runner race is never a fluke. I think that, yeah, that makes a lot of sense for me. Like, I feel like every PB that I've run, has been on off the back of about 3 or 4 attempts of trying to run a PB, except for my 10K PB. But I felt like even still, even still, I had a few really good 5K performances in the lead up that suggested, okay, I'm going to run well. And I feel like that, yeah, you can tell when you're fit, and it's because you've worked bloody hard to get there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think especially once you've been running for a while, it becomes really clear. When you're starting off, your body kind of can adapt and recover a lot. I don't know, it doesn't like it can do that pretty easily, and you don't need to load it up too much to
Mm.
get those adaptations happening, which I think was what running is all about. The recovery, it's not really about the training. And I think if you're running starting off, like, you've got an advantage almost. Like, you don't have to load yourself up so much to get the stimulation that someone who's been running for a while has to get.
Yeah.
So, like, whereas, like, I don't know, me or you have to do these big fast sessions or whatever.
Yeah.
Someone who's just starting out, they don't need to do that. Like, they can just run, I don't know, a few hard reps
Mm.
and then be, I don't know, broken down enough to stimulate their body to recover a lot. And then that's why you see these massive gains in performance. And someone who, you could be running, I don't know, like 60 Ks a week and still be an absolute freak, like running as well as me and Smithy.
Mm.
But because you've got that recovery dialed in and your body is able to just adapt to the training so well, that's how you can become such a good runner. And sometimes more isn't always the answer.
Yeah.
But geez, I feel like I went on a bit of a tangent there.
Mate, we're all about tangents here with the
Yeah,
Chiefs.
a good
We
run
love
is
a
never a
tangent.
fluke, though. Yeah.
Yeah. You can't just go off on a wild tangent and then state the point and then be like, oh yeah, yeah, that's how you tie
That's
it
what I was
back.
getting at.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
You got that's not the conclusion to the tangent. Yeah, but a good run is never a fluke. I agree, Dom. Yeah, let's
Yeah.
leave it at that. No. But I think it's. I mean, it just speaks to, for me at least, it speaks to the fact that when you have a good race, it means you've done a certain amount of training, like certain amount of good training that's put you 3 months or 6 months or however long has led you to running that race. So even if you like outperform massively what your expectations, it's not like it couldn't be a fluke because it just takes time and recovery and all these sort of things to get yourself in a certain form of certain shape. And you
Mm,
can't like for example, I'm not going to be able to run 15:30 in the 5K unless I've trained and gotten myself to that sort of level of fitness.
mm,
Like I can't, coming off a PB of like 16:26, for example, I'm not going to be able to fluke and run 15:30. Like, it's not going to happen. Or if I
yeah.
did, it's because that's where my training has led me.
Mm,
And maybe the 16:26 was not a good run, for example, but it's never because you've just like had an absolute blinder. And that, I think, ties back into the the not going out too fast sort of thing, like, because you can't really fight against where you're ready to run, or
mm,
what sort of time you're ready to run. But when you have an absolute blinder of a race, like for you, Dom, running 15:31, it's not a fluke. Like, you're
no, it
training,
definitely wasn't a fluke.
you're
Yeah.
training, and that's how fit you were, and you've sort of just maximized and extracted the most amount of performance out of yourself, which is
Mm,
what we all try and do. So I think it's a good distinction to make, and a good point to end on.
yeah. Couple of shout outs. I'm not sure if we've mentioned her before, but there's a Instagrammer. I think her name's Beck Keto Runner,
Oh yeah.
and she has been, yeah, I don't know, loving the podcast. She reposts it in a story every week, like that she's just listened to it. I think she had COVID for a bit, and she was saying that, yeah, the podcast was helping her get through that period. So That's really cool. Yeah, like
Yeah,
it's someone who I don't know personally and I've never met before, but yeah, that's awesome to hear. So thanks for that, Beck. It means a lot to us.
thanks, B. um, I don't have any particular shout outs, nothing I prepared. So,
That's
but
right. We'll
if
just
I'm
keep it at
gonna
Beck.
if I was gonna shout out anyone, it's thanks for thanks for running with me, Otto and Tobias, because running in
Mm,
a pack and with people is so much is so much easier. Um, yeah, just and also everyone at Canberra. It's like you get so used to we've gotten so used to COVID and not like being in races. It's still a shock to go back to, even though it's been opened up for a while. But yeah,
mm,
it's just nice to be back. But yeah, well, this ends the series, the second installment of Mr.
yeah.
Daniels series. We might do another one, but I think those principles are a good starting point
Yeah.
for
What's the book
runners.
called?
The book called is I can't.
Jack Daniel's Running Formula.
Yeah, Jack Daniel's Running Formula. It's extremely popular book,
Mm,
um, and I think we've talked about in the previous one. Jack Daniels is one of the most famous coaches I think in the world.
that's Mr. Daniel to you.
Mr. Daniels to me. Yeah, I don't know why I started calling him that, but he's Mr. Daniels to me. Um, so, and the overall book is fantastic, and we've made an episode. I think it was episode number 7 about
Mm,
the different training types of training and intensities as defined in the book. That's a good one to check out, I think.
definitely.
But we've also talked about it extensively with different people, different coaches in the podcast who have their own views on it. So yeah, Dom. Uh,
Sweet.
I guess that's it. Until next time, stay strong.
And stay fast, Chiefs.
Catch you later.